Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. My name is Dogsy, and One Piece is officially back. And with the return of One Piece means also the return of the crazy fan theories about how One Piece is going to end. Now, me personally, I'm quite partial to a fan theory, and I have found a video by the always amazing O'Hara, who, can't lie, you've probably heard of because he's quite big, who has basically asked his fans to send in ways they think that One Piece is going to end, and it's something I wanted to watch, and I thought what better place to watch it than with you guys, because then we can discuss it, see if we agree, see if we disagree, and see if we can add some of our own theories to it, because Lord knows I've got a few myself. So as always, I hope you guys enjoy it. With all that being said, let's watch it and see how weird or crazy these theories really are. Let's go.
Subscribers to share their best theories about how One Piece will end, and it got really wild. With the ideas I picked for today ranging from absolutely crazy to hilarious to just absolutely mind-blowing.
I'm excited.
Will Luffy marry Nami in the end? Has Luffy been in a coma all along?
No.
Is everyone in One Piece actually trapped inside a giant simulation?
No.
Started all the way back in the Void Century, and is the One Piece itself the admin key granting complete control over the world and the power to rewrite the program?
I can't imagine so, no.
The sounding idea was submitted by Somya from India, our first theorist today.
Go ahead.
And as you'll see in a sec, it has a bunch of moving parts, so I will try to do it justice. According to them, it's going to be revealed on Laugh Tale that the entire world of One Piece is just a living simulation created by an ancient civilization that Joy Boy is from, predating the Void Century. Now, this ancient civilization was researching the concept of dreams and how they could manifest as reality within a controlled environment. Which, hey, as far as we know, nothing says that this isn't actually the case in the story. So
I do.
Off to a really strong start here, I think, and maybe this is even where Vegapunk got his devil fruits are the dreams of the past idea from as well. Next, we then discovered that the One Piece is not a traditional treasure, but it's actually the admin key to that simulation. Which then means that the Void Century actually represents when that simulation was initially created, and the world government's true purpose is actually maintaining the illusion of this simulated world.
I'm just going to stop him here a second because I want to give my thoughts on that. That is very well written. Like, I will give it credit where it's due because that does sound very interesting. Not for One Piece though. Like, I just think it would be very anticlimactic, and I don't necessarily see how that would go down well with people who've spent most of their life, or all of their life to some extent, watching One Piece. Like, the story is so well written, the story is so like intertwining in so many ways, so I think it would just be the biggest kick in the face if Oda was like, oh, it's all just a dream and it's a social experiment to see what people will do in this, etc, etc. Not for me, but that's just my opinion. I'm gonna let him cook because I'm very curious, but not for me so far. Can't lie.
All in one big effort to prevent complete chaos. And if this were actually the case, this would of course cause the crew and obviously Luffy to have a really big choice to make in the end. Use the One Piece key to shut down the simulation and return everyone to the harsh reality outside, which is a desolate dystopian world, or continue living inside the simulation where dreams can become
and you can be King of the Pirates.
But at the cost of your own freedom and knowledge of the true world. And since Luffy in the end believes in freedom, he battles the world government, manipulating the very fabric of the simulated reality, bending space, time, and physical laws with the power of his sun god Devil.
I can't see it, honestly.
Next, they break the fourth wall a bunch, realize that everyone on the crew has a real-life freedom fighter on the outside that represents them, and it becomes the sort of Persona 5 meets the Matrix style
cognition and all that. Nah.
Absolutely
I love it, but no.
There are some breadcrumbs here and there that might hint at that. There isn't a ton of evidence pointing towards it, but hey, it also means nothing is proven wrong yet. So, way to shoot for this.
I love Persona 5, but no.
Before we get into the second one, thanks so much for everyone who submitted your ideas. We had over 300 submissions, and picking just a handful was super difficult. So, keep on theorizing. You're all killing it. And honestly, I think we should kind of keep the sci-fi fun going here because
I just can't see it, honestly. I just think it's a bit too Persona 5. Like, I love Persona 5. It's my favorite game ever made. but I can't see One Piece being linked to like cognitive behavior or like a phone app or something like that. It just doesn't really suit where the story's gone prior, so not for me. I rate it, I respect it, thank you for the theory, but I don't see it personally. But hey, what do I know? I'm just giving my view.
Luckily, Kashimo from
Another
Japan
one.
has the perfect next theory for us.
Go ahead.
Because their idea is that the One Piece is a device that lets the crew travel the multiverse.
Avengers?
Maybe they were playing Jump Force or watching Rick and Morty.
Not for me again, no.
Idea, but I am loving it. Essentially, they think that the true history of the world is one of multiverse hopping pirates, world governments seeking to control that very power, and closing the gates to infinity. And with this power, Imu or Luffy would be able to destroy or create entire
universes.
Now,
Yeah.
let's be real with the entire Marvel thing and the way One Piece is going. The idea of bouncing around different universes and worlds basically isn't all too crazy, and as they point out in their submission as well, it would explain why so many different fantastical creatures, genres of fiction, and time periods are all clashing.
I'll give you the
on
time periods one,
the
yeah.
Grand Line. You know,
I'll give you that one.
Wano is a feudal Japanese society compared to the Egghead Island, an island from the
Future, yeah.
or how dragons, longland creatures, and giants all exist at the same time.
It has
All of
legs.
them are actually fragments from this multiversal part of history, all merging on the Grand Line, remaining on the key world that we know and love today.
That has more legs than the first one, I can't lie.
There is still plenty more to come. And don't worry, the last one is one that I personally actually think might very possibly happen. And
I'm excited.
The actual ending of the story. But
Go
before
on.
we cover any of that, I want to take a quick detour away from Luffy, the Sun Gods, and what the One Piece is, because our next One Piece ending theory from Radya from the UK is all about our moss-haired swordsman,
Zorro.
Zorro. Now, I gotta be honest, when I first started reading this one, I thought, oh man, this is pretty solid, nothing too crazy, and then by the end of reading through it, I genuinely think if Oda did this, or does something even similar that I'll suggest at the end of this video, it would be the perfect end to Zoro's story that will also probably cost him like 85% of his fans. Here's what it is. This ending occurs after Zoro slices down Mihawk and
Obviously.
the title of World's Greatest Swordsman.
As
After
he
the
should.
dust settles, Zoro doesn't go back to Shimotsuki Village, nor does he try to roam the world searching for new challengers. Instead, he gets very lost, of course, but then eventually finds Emporio Ivankov. And yep, next up, Zoro simply requests to become a woman, honoring Kuina and proving that she could have actually become the world's greatest swordswoman as well. It's a final act of tribute and dedication to his friend that really warms the heart. Now, I gotta say, this theory also says that he'll then go on to marry Sanji, and well, I mean,
Oh, sorry?
an idea, that's for sure. I actually think he'll take Tashigi under his wings so that she can then cut him down, taking his title and proving Kuina's goal double, but hey, I mean, Femme Zorro rules as well, I guess. Pretty out there theory, but that's what we're here for.
Sorry, no. We need to digest what's just happened because my brain is not keeping up with that one. Let me just rewind this. So Zoro beats Mihawk, officially becoming the best in the world as he's always wanted to be. Cool. But instead of going home or looking for a new challenger, he becomes a woman because he asks Ivankov to turn him into one. No. It would prove that a woman could be the greatest swords person of all time. That I 100% agree with. Same as if Tashigi did it, it would prove that a woman's very good at being a swords person, and that's incredible. It would be bittersweet because I think Kuina wanted a woman to succeed, like, fully. Like, she wanted to be, like, taken seriously as a swords person, and I think if Zoro did it and then just became a woman, it's a little bit of a cop-out. It's a very cool theory, but again, I think that's very, very, very far left field. And then add on to that, sorry, he marries Sanji. Does Sanji know that it was once Zoro, or does he keep that quiet? Does Zoro now suddenly want to sleep with Sanji? It's a lot of questions that you'd have to kind of navigate here. I don't see it though. Personally, I think that might be a little bit out of the weird level of Oda's mind, but again, I could be very wrong. Oda's a strange man. Genius, but strange man. I can't even see Sanji surviving the whole thing. And I know that's a weird take to have, but I do think Sanji's one of the people who's going to get killed off at some point, because obviously Oda doesn't kill a lot of people off, but I think in the upcoming overarching stuff that's going to happen, there are going to be people who die. And I think that Sanji's going to be one of them. And I think that Brook might be another one. But I also have a secondary theory on Brook, but we'll get to that later. I can see him avenging Quina and becoming the greatest swordsman like he always wanted to be, like he said he was going to do. That much I can probably guarantee from my own perspective, but I can't see him becoming a woman. Not personally. But very good theory. Very interesting to listen to.
And while we're talking about love, we have to quickly talk about...
Gotta be Nami and Luffy, right?
From the user Big Tony M, located in Indiana, the US.
Has to be.
Now, he didn't have too much to say about this one, but he wanted everyone to know that Luffy and Nami, they're actually getting married at the end of the story once Luffy
I can
discovers
see
his
it.
very romantic
Weirdly.
side after becoming Pirate King. Which, to be fair, is not that unreasonable. I mean, it would be in classic shonen fashion, but I'm still pretty skeptical about this one, since Oda has gone officially on record to say that the Straw Hats are far more family-oriented as a group. So really, the only thing that Luffy would probably marry is a big chunk of meat.
Or someone who ate the meat fruit.
Stuff at the end of this video you guys came up with, we've still got a few really other awesome ones to go through as well, including now my personal favorites,
Go on.
Whale Piece.
The Boon!
As you don't know, whales are actually surprisingly important in One Piece, and they have a tendency to appear in connection with Laugh Tale as well, like the poneglyph inside the whale tree on Zou leading to the last islands, the Straw Hats getting the log post, and hearing about Laugh Tale for the very first time from Crocus and Laboon, or even a pod of whales appearing in this panel when the Straw Hats enter the New World.
Interesting.
But Noah from the US of A has an even bigger theory, no pun intended here, and that's because he thinks that Luffy will literally become a whale using his mind-bending Nika powers and then level the Grand Line alongside with Laboon.
To smash through the red line.
Carry everyone to space where they live happily ever after,
Okay.
looking down upon the All Blue. And Noah himself actually summed up the theory pretty perfectly with his last line right here. Whales are cool. I mean, Jinbei is a whale shark, Jinbei helped Luffy at his lowest, and Jinbei will help the world at its lowest as well.
Alright, fair play.
Moving on, we have yet
I love that. Like, I love Laboon. I'm still clamoring for Laboon and Brooks reuniting. Like, that's just a thing that I need to happen at some point, like, properly, because Brook deserves it and Brook is wonderful. I can't imagine Luffy turning into a whale, but I can't argue that there are some good arguments here that Jinbei is in fact a whale shark. So, and whales have been very helpful, and we see a lot of whales and etc, etc. Whales are very central to the theme. Would I enjoy it if Luffy and Laboon in whale form just started headbutting the red line and making it all into one big thing? Kind of, yeah. Do I imagine it happening? No. But I kind of want it to now. Like, I can understand why he said it's his favorite one, because so far I smiled thinking about it purely because it is so wacky, but also kind of makes sense at the same time. So I really mess with that one. I'm going to let him finish, but so far so good. That is my personal favorite theory so far, and I hope it happens. I really do.
Favorite submissions from this list, so shout out to Pigeon Legion, which
Pigeons?
is definitely your real name, right, for suggesting an idea that I think a ton of people would absolutely love to come
Go
to.
on.
Instead of the One Piece being revealed at the end, it will simply be a panel from Oda writing, "You want the treasure? You can have it, because I've left everything I've gathered in one place. Now you just have to go out and find it yourself. The end. Good luck in your new world."
I kind of love
I
that.
believe that Oda himself is going to create the great pirate era in real life.
That would be
inspiring the entire world to go
insane.
on a manhunt to uncover the real life One Piece and accidentally also cause a mass global dilemma in the process as
Yeah.
well. Fun fact, the creator of Gravity Falls, Alex Hirsch, actually did something quite similar, and it turned out to be a super fun ARG that the fan base absolutely loved. And for
I
all
love
you
that.
game theory fans and have no idea what an ARG actually
I
is,
do.
it stands for alternate reality game and involves adding elements of of our real world to complete your own storytelling. You know, for example, Oda using websites to hide clues, phone numbers you can actually call on your phone, or even hiding objects and things in the real world
That would be
to find to complete the story. And come on, the idea of
up here
getting to roam around the world trying to find Oda's hidden secret is just an amazing idea. But now our next one is a little bit
I
similar.
love that more than I don't have no words to say on that.
One Piece will actually just be an empty chest with a note in it stating that you think that I'd make it that easy for
Oh,
you?
good lord.
Ultimately meaning that the entire journey that Roger
It's
set
pointless.
everyone on was actually based on a huge lie. Now, interestingly enough, this theory actually has some good evidence.
Oh.
Gaimon's entire arc implies a very similar thing could happen towards the end. I'm referring to the end of his story.
The empty
All of
chest.
The treasure that he's been trying to get to for years ended up being a bunch of empty treasure chests on a hill. Which is super interesting because if this is actually true,
I think, as much as I love Oda and I love One Piece and I love that whole arc there, little filler arc there, I think that would genuinely piss me off. Like, I have put a lot of time, as of most of us, all of us, shall we say, into figuring out this big, cryptic spider web of stuff to try and figure out what this thing is. For it to just be an empty chest, I think would be half genius, half sadistic. Like, it would be the biggest waste of everyone's time, and I get it. The metaphor of it's not about the end, it's about the journey to get there. I understand that. But I think we've come too far for it to be nothing, or for it to just be an empty chest that someone got first. I don't know. Not a fan of that one. I'm still reeling from the it's a real life thing where we actually have to go and find the real One Piece, like the big secret. That would be insane. It gave me Pokemon Go vibes in a weird sense. Like, I know no one's going to agree with me on that, but like the whole roaming to just find something. Probably wouldn't like the fact that if real life was like that, then people would start killing each other to get to Oda's treasure, but that's a different story for another day.
Actually true, Luffy and Roger's goal of crushing the world government are based on literally
Nothing.
All of it would be due to a massive fake treasure hunt, and honestly, I can sort of get behind the idea. I mean, it's a very, the One Piece is the friends we made along the way type of
Yeah,
story, and
nah.
Oda said that the One Piece isn't a pure concept. An empty treasure chest sure does count as a physical item.
Don't even plant the seed, mate.
Surprisingly, I find this one oddly satisfying, so instead now let's talk about a theory that might be a little bit more controversial. And I mean,
Go ahead.
I knew that this one was gonna come, so thanks to King Serdar for submitting the
Nah, no dreams. No dreams.
Now, in his specific version of the story, right after Luffy becomes the king of the pirates, we find out that he has actually been in a coma ever since chapter 1. Even though Shanks saved him, the trauma from Lord of the Coast put him in a permanent coma. And everything that we've seen ever since, just a young boy's strong imagination. And when he wakes up, Luffy no longer wants to be the king of the pirates, all because he already did it all just
in his head.
Inside of his dreams.
Nah, don't like it.
Would be quite literal. It's his will inside of his own dreams, and Oda building all this mystery around it was him constantly teasing the idea that nothing that we've been reading has
ever actually happened.
This really interesting version of the theory, which kind of takes place in the One Piece world, but then makes it not happen in a weird way, then goes on to state that the GOAT, Buggy the Clown, actually ends up becoming Pirate King. Every crew member has actually died except for Jinbei and Brook because they're still an Impel Down and floating around Thriller Bark, which I guess is a bit dark and sad, but I guess still an option. So I do respect your commitment to the bit here, Sarah, because I mean, let's be real, someone had to submit that one. Now all of these theories
not for me.
are really something else, to say the least, and I promise that the last one is really
this is the one I'm hyped for.
A loose news, and I know a lot of us are waiting for in a truly symbolic and important way. But before we get to that one, I wanted to shout out Avery from Canada because you had a really amazing idea for the ending, and I just had to share it here as well.
Go ahead,
because
please.
She thinks that the One Piece treasure is literally something that defies the One Piece world, something that's ridiculous and subverts everyone's expectation, which is why she makes the crazy claim that the One Piece is actually food. Yum. I mean, it kind of ties in nicely with Luffy's major goal during Wano. After all, he really just wanted to make sure that Tama had enough food. And Avery also pointed out nicely that Wano is the same arc that we find out about Luffy's and Roger's true dreams. And so Avery believes that it's this connection that proves that their goal is to feed the entire world and no one ever needs to be hungry again, since if there was no hunger, Luffy would have no problem. And it's also a theme constantly touched upon in different One Piece arc like Whole Cake Island or even the Baratie, and I mean, it's even Sanji's whole gimmick and arc as well if you really think about it. Not to mention that food is actually one of the biggest plot points in Yamato's cover story, between her pot of Odin showing off the food stalls and the emphasis on showing how Wano is thriving after Luffy's intervention. It's pretty clear that food is a way bigger factor than we all already thought it was in the story.
It's a very sweet theory.
I really like this one. It's goofy, it makes sense,
sweet,
and it's got a bit of evidence to back it up as well, so keep up your good work here, Avery.
It kind of plays into the fact of like Luffy being so pure that he just wants to feed everybody. It also could play into the fact that he's just an internalized fat kid like the rest of us who just likes food and he wants everyone to experience it because food is wonderful. I don't know if the whole concept of Roger putting something in somewhere or in a certain place for it to just end up being food is a logical standpoint. I don't hate it, and I rate the fact that someone's come up with this theory, but I think, again, it would be a bit of a letdown. I don't know. I'll tell you what I do know, though, that I'm really looking forward to this last one that he's mentioned like 2 or 3 times, because he said it's the one he believes personally might actually happen. I'm curious. I'm already invested in the video. Give me this last point. I'm really, really curious about it.
And while all of the theories so far were absolutely amazing, this one really blew me away from both a creativity and a standpoint as well. So thank you, Charles Holland from Tennessee, for submitting this super cool idea about Luffy and the sun.
Okay.
To put it bluntly, he believes that after the final big war, One Piece ends with Luffy
becoming the sun. I've heard this before.
The first part of evidence for this theory comes from something that we've discussed previously in another theory, because we do know that Luffy's body really struggles based on his gear powers and all of the damage that he has.
Absolutely.
I mean, Coma and Zoro's nothing happened moment is an amazing piece of evidence for this. Nobody can properly handle the level of pain Luffy does every single fight, and it's going to catch up to him at some point.
Naturally.
And so in this theory, Luffy ends up sick and dying due to the overuse of Gear 5,
but becomes the sun.
Powers alike. And despite his best efforts, Chopper also can't heal him. All seems to be lost until a long-forgotten god comes down from space with the right cure. It's the Art Maxine carrying God Enel, who swoops down and grabs Luffy. Enel then goes on to tell the world about the sun god's true origins that he discovered on the moon, and how Nika and the sky races came down from the heavens over 1,000 years ago, bringing the eternal flame, the raw power of the sun itself, to the ancient kingdom. And so the only way to now save Luffy is to bring him to the source of his own power, the world's power, the sun itself. And so Enel sets the arc on a path for the sun, granting Luffy the strength and life that he needs. Which is just such a cool idea.
Very cool theory.
The unrealistic part of this being that Enel had a change of heart while chilling up on the moon, I guess. And it's not until years later that he then returns to die among his friends. The crew shows him everything they have done in his absence, not knowing that he's been watching them this entire time with a huge smile on his face.
I love that. It's cute.
Luffy granted them his one last wish, a real chance at true freedom. And honestly, yes, it is a little bit out there, but I also think that there's a lot of...
It's not that out there.
Charles wanted to point out in his own theory that there are a bunch of space references in all of One Piece. There's the model of a solar system on Ohara, the naming scheme of the Gorosei, and of course Enel's journey to the moon.
Absolutely.
Something that teases a lot of things about the Mother Flame, the Sky Races, and Sun God Nika, and also how fitting would it be for Luffy to become the sunshine, the literal dawn for a new
Love
era.
it.
Maybe even the Romance
Hey.
gods? Huh? But if your thirst for theories has not been stilled quite yet, I'm going to share one of my theories that talks about a lot of the points you guys have brought up here as well. It's got epic battles, sun gods, brotherhoods, and even some whales as well. So check out this 1,000-year One Piece theory below me, because I'm sure it will blow your mind.
Damn, we might need to watch that at some point.
Sensei is hiding in plain sight with the strings that have been pulling events for the One Piece world for over 1,000 years.
Wow.
Otherwise, thank you so much for watching.
No,
So
thank you. That was very fun. That was genuinely very, very enjoyable. But I do want to add, just as a small caveat, some of them, as much as I respect you for having your opinions, and I will never judge you for your opinions, no matter who you are, it shows why fans of anime don't write the script, because some of them were a little bit maybe out there or plot holey or whatever words you want to use. Very creative, very, very interesting to listen to, and very kind of fun as a food for thought thing, but there's not a lot of them I could actually see happening. The sun thing at the end, I genuinely probably could see, because metaphorically, Luffy becoming, as he said, the dawn of a new era, which is his whole kind of shtick, would be very, very fitting, and I really would enjoy that. I also like the whale theory. I don't think it will happen, but I love it, as I said prior. Now, I have my own theory. I touched on the fact earlier that I believe Sanji will die. I also said that I think Brook will die. I should probably clarify that before I do anything else today. Now, obviously, Brook is a skeleton with a soul in it, and he cannot die unless the skeleton gets destroyed. Now, my theory is that somehow Brook will awaken this devil fruit and potentially gain the ability to use his life force to revive or give life force to someone else. So, possibly someone like Usopp or Zoro or even Luffy himself dies in the final fight or final saga, and Brook uses his little life force, his little soul, to revive someone else, therefore giving them the win in this whole fight with inevitably Blackbeard or Shanks or whoever it may be at the end, most likely Blackbeard. Now, that's not my main theory, it's just something I thought of in the last couple of days or so. My main theory is that the One Piece, quote unquote, is the uniting of all the seas. Like, instead of having north, south, east, west, whatever, there's a big red line in the middle that the Boon's headbutting. It fits into the whale theory from earlier. Maybe the concept of the One Piece is destroying the red line and uniting all the seas as one thing under one king. It's maybe a bit out there, maybe it's logical, maybe it's not. It's just something that's popped into my head recently, but it would make sense to me. It would be kind of full circle. I don't know, man. I'm not a theory crafter. I'm just a fan who watches the show, who's thought, hey, this sounds like it could make sense. But regardless of that, what do you guys think? Are any of these theories logical to you? Do you think any of them will happen? Do you have a completely different theory? Let me know in the comments below, because I love reading fan theories and I love listening to you guys talk in general. So let me know in the comments what you guys will think will happen. And ultimately, I trust Oda. I'm sure it's going to be phenomenal whatever happens. I love One Piece. You guys love One Piece. And honestly, I just hope it's everything that we want it to be. So until next time, thank you guys so much for giving me half an hour of your day. I've been Doxy, you've been beautiful, and I will see you soon for more fun content. See you later.